Hey everyone, Geophysicist Stefan Burns here. We right now may be witnessing the birth of a new island, and this is a very rare process to see in real time. We only have a few other examples. Scientists around the world are very excited by this, even though right now this is the largest volcanic eruption yet in 2026, and there's no signs of it stopping. In fact, there are signs that it's getting bigger and more powerful and stronger, and there are risks associated with that. For example, you could have a flank collapse, you could get a tsunami from that, and more. So this is the Ridge Volcano. It's a local pronunciation in the Central Bismarck Sea near Papua New Guinea. This started up on May 8th. There were some earthquakes that occurred right before then. We can see the swarm here with our USGS latest earthquakes map. And if we go to our oldest earthquakes, we see the oldest was a 5.7, actually struck a little bit further away. We can kind of ignore that. 4.6 right there, 4.7, 4.6. Then we have this 5.6. You see that's on the 8th of May. If you go to our newest, we see a 5.7. So the strongest earthquake yet just struck today on the 22nd of May. This imagery here from the 22nd of May as well. The past few days there's been some cloud cover, so it's been hard to see what's been happening. They did pick up a large hydroacoustic signal on the 20th of May, indicating that this volcanic eruption is getting stronger and progressing, and we don't know when this is going to end. Some of these eruptions from these sort of environments, these mid-ocean ridges or just in general like submarine ridges, they can last for a few days. They can also last for a few years. So we could be just seeing the beginning of a long-term, powerful eruptive process here on Earth. And therefore, this could be leading to the creation of a new island. The original bathymetry data, which is very low resolution, mind you, not high quality, for this area shows the depth being like 1,000 meters, 1,300 meters below the surface. It would require a lot of growth to reach the surface. This satellite imagery and some other data is indicating that this eruptive event actually may be quite a bit closer to the surface. So if that is the case, and we can see the spread of discolored water here with our satellite imagery, and these pumice rafts are washing ashore nearby islands, this could be the beginning of new land being formed here on this planet. So in today's video, I'm going to give you a comprehensive update on Ridge Volcano, what's happening, future risks, what we can expect, this ongoing earthquake swarm that's occurring around that, because that's really giving us a pretty big clue as to the significance of this volcanic eruption and also how this ties into the bigger picture. So let's jump right into it. So let's start off by looking at this high resolution close-up imagery of this volcanic eruption. Now, of course, we're not seeing below the surface of the ocean. That'd be really cool. We don't have that capability. Unless you take an ROV and do all that stuff. And hopefully there are plans to do that, though of course this is a dangerous situation. So you wouldn't really want to be on the ship near this thing. At least I wouldn't want to be. Here we see in very high detail these water vapor plumes, steam plumes coming off the surface, and we see these infrared signatures. So this is one of these data points that's indicating that this eruptive event may be closer to the surface of the ocean than we otherwise thought. And in general, you see it a little bit more zoomed out here. A lot of clouds all around, but look at the scale bar there. Only 2 kilometers for that bar. So this is a very high resolution look at what's happening here. And let's go to our bathymetry data viewer so we can see specifically where we are here on the world. Well, we can zoom out to here. We see Papua New Guinea, Indonesia. This is the Southeast Pacific. And we can zone in here on the Bismarck Sea. There's a whole arc of volcanoes that exists like this, okay? So this is the South Bismarck Sea volcanic arc, and there is a long history of big volcanic eruptions there and also of flank collapse, these submarine landslides, and even above ground that then shoots off and creates these debris fans that can create big tsunamis that are 15, 20, 30 feet high. So this is a real risk in this part of the world. Now the thing with this volcano is that it's a little bit further away from some of these islands. Like some of these are really, really close in. And for example, like if you have one happen here, you could have that tsunami wave quickly hit these islands nearby. But for this Ridge Volcano, it would be at depth, and that could perhaps limit the wave of the tsunami. But if we just get our elevation data from NOAA here, you'll see it says like negative 828 meters. You know, if I go off to the side to where you have the basin, it's negative 2,096 meters. Let's really kind of like get one of these peaks here, negative 912 meters. But this is not the best data. I mean, I think that's probably fairly accurate, but perhaps there's like a local topographic area where it really gets quite a bit closer. And as this volcanic eruption proceeds, that is going to build up a cone. And these cones can build quite quickly, especially if this is going to be a longer duration eruption that doesn't last just a couple weeks, but in fact, maybe a couple years. That does give it plenty of time to build up this structure that eventually could reach the surface. And again, with this close-up imagery that we have, we see that these infrared signatures are really showing that there's something happening close to the surface here. Now, to go back to our earthquake swarm, we see that we have all these events here. The latest being a magnitude 5.7. That's the strongest yet in the swarm. We're only looking at magnitude 4.5 or greater earthquakes for the past month. And if you go all the way to the bottom there, you do see this 5.7. This one is off to the side. So that one's unrelated to this swarm. But beyond that, if you go all the way to the bottom, the first big earthquake that struck this area was a 4.6, 4.7, 4.6, 5.6. And then things kind of cooled down. We did get this 5.4 there on the 15th, 5.1 on the 17th, now on the 22nd, 5.7. You can see them all clustering together fairly closely. So this is indicating that there is a pretty big push of magma coming up. And if you read into the latest literature on magma plumbing systems, it's really fascinating. It's fairly complex. You have these melt lenses that exist. So think of just like an actual lens, like a little pool of magma that can be a very high concentration of magma, like melt. Then you can also have these crystallized mush zones, which have some percentage of mush, but there's also quite a bit of crystal structures in them, like plagioclase or whatever. And then you can have other parts where the crust is pretty hard and there's really not much magma and it's pretty solidified. What can happen is if you get a new pulse of melt coming up from the mantle, then that can quickly activate these mush zones. And if they are already filled in, then they can all of a sudden decharge together and you can get this big eruption to occur. And the other thing to keep in mind as it relates to earthquakes is that these earthquakes are creating new fractures. So what we see sometimes is you get these earthquakes that pop off, expanding out these fracture zones where you get this magma to then fill in. And that's kind of a pressure relieving mechanism. And now they have a larger overall melt magma reservoir. If you get another push of magma from depth, which is likely also what generated the earthquakes in the first place, if you get another one coming up from depth, now you have an even bigger potential for a bigger eruption. So this is something to keep in mind. We're seeing clearly some movement of magma from deeper parts of the earth, like the upper mantle, into this part of the lithosphere, and now actually coming up and expressing itself, you know, with this volcano, with the eruption. And the fact that we're still having earthquake activity now shows that this is still an active process. Keep in mind how earthquakes scale. So 5.7 is effectively equivalent to all these earthquakes that preceded before it in terms of total energy release. Because it would take about, 5.4 and a 5.6 combined together do not equal a 5.7. So if you take all those and add them together, that's probably about a 5.7. So just today, May 22nd, 2026, we've had the same amount of energy released with that single earthquake as all these others combined. So I think this is really evolving quite rapidly. And we can look at our authority update here. So this will give us a better sense as to what is occurring. Here is also some more high resolution imagery from this earlier on. This is put out by the Mineral Resources Authority, Papua New Guinea. There was an abrupt rise in hydroacoustic signal at 3 p.m. on the 20th of May. This could indicate an upsurge in activity. I think that 5.7 earthquake today effectively confirms that. And the risk, there is a possibility of tsunamis being generated, especially as the eruption is showing a clear evolution in behavior. So this eruption is showing no signs of stopping. It's really progressing quite quickly. Again, almost certainly the largest volcanic eruption yet in 2026. And we have some really high quality imagery here provided by NASA. You see the scroller there. This is the 22nd. We have a 1 day snapshot for each of these. I can't make it higher resolution than that, but you can really see the steam coming up, the discoloration, pumice and more. And if you scroll back in time, some of these are taken at night, and some of them don't show up too well, but others show up very clearly. Look at the difference there. Look how much has progressed since the 17th versus the 22nd right here. So it's really starting to expand outwards. And again, you see that there. This is already a significant eruption when this was occurring back on the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, as we see. We even have this good snapshot of this weird anomaly that we identified when I first covered this, where you had this, this dual, you remember they spread out like this, and then you had steam come up from both ends. When this eruption first started, this sent a steam, maybe some ash column up about 9,000 feet or so. It's like 3,000 meters. While it's erupting underneath the ocean with tons of pressure bearing down on it. And again, we don't know the exact depth of this. If it is occurring at negative 1,300 meters, which is what the bathymetry data suggests, or like a kilometer down, that's a tremendously powerful eruption. If it's actually closer to the surface, it's still a very powerful eruption. So there is some ambiguity there. We just simply don't know what we don't know yet. There, I'm sure, starting to plan some cruises to get more information on this, but we're currently limited there with what we know. But this satellite imagery coming in is telling us a lot, and it looks like literally a new island is being created in real time. And this has not happened that often in the satellite era. So this is one of these really rare opportunities to observe the island creation process, perhaps actually unfold in front of our eyes. So that's quite exciting. But again, there is this risk that this really could progress in a way that maybe isn't good, because you could have a flank collapse from this. We were getting these big earthquakes, right? Clearly there's a ton of energy here with this eruption. If you were to get a flank on that ridge to collapse, that could generate a tsunami that then sweeps out. And if we go back to our NOAA bathymetry data viewer here, we can kind of see where that risk may be. So if we get a flank collapse, let's say here to the north, then that could shoot a tsunami wave out here to the north. If we get a flank collapse on this side, it could go then to the south. This is a very real risk. We've seen these sort of landslides and collapses and tsunamis in this region before in the Bismarck Sea, so it's certainly possible. Definitely good to be aware of that risk. Of course, if we had another Hunga Pai, the biggest eruption of the 21st century, which occurred January 15th of 2022, not that long ago, that's a VEI 5.8. So that was a big eruption. Probably not going to be that big because these sort of ridge volcanoes don't typically have that sort of explosive potential, but there's a lot more that we don't know about this than we do know about this. So it's good to be aware of the fact that this is escalating, could become something quite a bit bigger. We are also right now in general in this lower period of solar activity on like the 100-year time scale. This is called the Gleisberg cycle. There's this about 88 to 100 year long variation in solar activity. It's called a Gleisberg cycle. And we see bigger volcanic activity that's statistically significant during solar minimums. And that effect is also true at that 88 to 100 year period length as well. The Gleisberg one, they sync up. So the fact that we are still roughly in the bottom of that Gleisberg cycle, now getting close to getting out of it, but still at the bottom of that Gleisberg cycle, and we had Hunga Tonga happen right in 2022, indicating that we are in a period right now where large volcanic eruptions are more possible. And now we're seeing this occur in the Central Bismarck Sea, and it's really progressing quite quickly with hydroacoustic signals, big earthquakes, big eruptions, and more. So that is your update on Teton Volcano in the Central Bismarck Sea. We'll keep you up to date on everything that's happening here. This could just die out in a few days. I don't think that's going to occur. I think we at least have another week, 2-3 weeks of this, if not, in fact, like months and years. That's certainly possible. But this is a big area to watch, especially with all the other activity that we've been having in the Ring of Fire, specifically the Western Pacific is where we've been having all the big earthquake activity globally and more. So that area right now has just a ton of energy that's expressing itself with volcanoes and with earthquakes. So I'll keep you up to date on all that and much more. Thank you all so much for watching. I have more updates on my Clips channel as well, so make sure to check that out at Stefan Burns Clips. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. Smash that thumbs up button, help the channel grow. Subscribe to stay up to date, and I'll see you all in the next video.